What's going on? What's going on? What's going on, man? It's your boy Jay Howard, aka the official Georgia boy, and you're now tuned in to another episode of No Huddle. Me, myself, Jeremy, and I got my guy Hassan, man. So, hey, man, how you feeling today, bro? How you doing?
What's going on, party people? Feeling good, feeling great. What's going on
Yeah.
with you, man?
Hey, I'm feeling good, man. It's football Sunday, so I'm good. I'm good. Yeah. So we got a nice little show lined up for y'all today, man. But if you're new here, hey, don't forget, go to YouTube right now. Subscribe to Fan of Atlanta 365, the network, where you can catch No Huddle live every Saturday. I think we're gonna switch the time, but right now it's we right now we doing a 6 o'clock thing. But we'll have a definite time for y'all. But definitely catch us live every Saturday night. Catch J and B, the Talk of the Dirty South show, which I know my guy, he haven't been able to make his debut yet, but I'm gonna hold it down until you get back from handling some Army business. But catch us live every Friday night at 7 p.m. And also catch Fan of Atlanta 365 post game analysis after every Falcon game the next day. So if we play on like we play tomorrow, you can catch me live Monday night. If we play Thursday night game, catch me live Friday night. And if we have a Monday night game, you can catch me Tuesday night. But yeah, definitely, man, subscribe to the channel, man. Tell everybody about the show, man. Tell your mama, tell your daddy, tell your sister, tell your brother, tell your dog, tell your cat, tell your snake, tell your rat, and throw in your Carolina Panther in there, because the Falcon will be feasting on some Carolina Panthers tomorrow. But that's a whole nother story for another day. But yeah, so definitely, man, like, share, comment on these videos, because we always gonna comment back, man. But yeah, so we got a nice little show lined up for y'all today, man. Hey, I'm ready to get going if you ready, bro.
I was born ready. Let's do this.
Let's get it. Let's get it. So we got a nice little topic lined up. The first one I want to get to is now it's time to do that top 10 NFL power ranking. Of course, this is our own power ranking, so this is not based on what's actually going on. It's a prediction of who you think is going to be the top 10 teams going into the season. So, hey, man, we're gonna kick it off from starting with number 10, and we'll just alternate, until we get to the number 1 teams, man. So, hey, let's go ahead and kick it off, man. Who you got for number 10?
Number 10, you actually saw play a couple days ago. Got them Detroit Lions coming in at number 10, man. They came out and pretty much played party crasher to the defending Super Bowl champs in their own home. So, I mean, that's a great showing. I mean, the defense will be steadily improving with additions like CJ Gardner Johnson, who was with the Eagles last year. They have Aiden Hutchinson, and then on the offensive side of the ball, we already know they got Jared Goff. They drafted Jahmyr Gibbs, who looks solid but not spectacular. But I mean, his first NFL action. Then they went out and got David Montgomery. Um, and then they have a lot of speed with offensive wideouts and stuff like that. So I really like what they have. They have a strong coaching staff. Their offensive coordinator is one of the top names for upcoming potential head coaching gig. So yeah, I mean they have all the pieces together. That division is compromised a little bit in the NFC North. We don't really know what to expect outside of maybe the Vikings. So they're my number 10. What about you, brother? Who you got?
Yeah. I definitely like them Lions, man. They played a good game last game against the Chiefs. I wish I would have been able to see Travis Kelce on the field. I felt like Patrick Mahomes had a good game, but the receivers was just dropping a lot of passes. So that game could have went a whole nother way if he actually had some guys that can catch the ball. We probably would be talking about a different game. If Kelsey was in those moments. But yeah, definitely the Detroit Lions. I like them. But I'm going another way, man. I'm sticking with my home team, the Atlanta Falcons, man. Hey, we added a lot of weapons to this roster. Of course, we haven't seen much of Desmond Ritter, but when you have as many weapons as he has going into this season, it's gonna be hard to stop these Atlanta Falcons. I think people are sleeping on this team. Then when you look at that defensive side of the ball, I know in the past we haven't been able to get to the quarterback, and I'm not even really thinking that we're going to just get to the quarterback, but we will apply a lot of pressure. You bring in a Calais Campbell, you bring in a David Amiata, you bring in a Jesse Bates, a Jeffrey Okuda, even though he won't be playing tomorrow. But you brought in some key pieces along on that offensive ball. On the offensive side of the ball, you brought in Bijan Robinson in the first round of the draft. You add in Matt Hollins to this already stout, receiving core. Kyle Pitts is back. So you just got weapons everywhere, man. Of course, you still got Cordero Patterson. You still have Tyler Algier, who ran over 1,000 yards rushing last season. So I'm pretty sure that he's gonna, his carries may decline, but at the same time, I think he's gonna still be effective. We just got so many weapons on this team, man. You bring back your offensive line, you add one more piece to that offensive line to complete it, and I think the Falcons will be that team that's gonna surprise a lot of people. I think we can have a top 10 defense, and in the offense, if we could just run the ball like we did last year and be somewhat of a balanced team in the air as well. I think the Falcons can make some noise. So I got the Falcons as my number 10, ranking in this power ranking.
Solid, solid, solid. I'm not mad
Yeah,
at it. Not mad
I
at it.
guess.
I mean, they should surprise a lot of people in
Mm-hmm.
a compromised NFC South at that. A
Exactly.
lot of rookies, a lot of new
Exactly.
pieces, there's a couple new head coaches. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, awesome.
Yep.
I like
Yep.
it.
So who you got for number 9, man?
Number nine. Engine, number nine. I got the Miami Dolphins coming in at number nine. Even though Jalen Ramsey is going to be lost pretty much for the season, they still have some defensive firepower over there. And of course, Mike Gesicki is no longer there. But again, he is not there because he's essentially a non-factor in that offense. But you got Tyreek Hill, you got Waddle, you got pieces. Now, yes, of course, Tua Tagovailoa is the X factor, but I think they're gonna have enough to put it all together. They would have been a lot higher on this list if they would have been able to pull the trigger and snag Dalvin Cook, but unfortunately, he went to another team. That's the only thing offensively that's a little bit more of a question mark. Yes, quarterback play matters, but if they're not able to run the ball consistently to take pressure off of Tua and off of those wideouts and to keep defenses honest, they probably might slip. But I still think maybe I'm an optimist. I think Tua is going to be upright all season. He's going to ball out and put up Pro Bowl caliber numbers in a stacked AFC as far as coaches are concerned. And, I don't think it's outside of the realm of possibility for them to win 10 to 13 games, depending on how well they play. If they get a full 16, 17 games of Tua for the first half of what he played, they can honestly contend for the AFC East title. So that's who I got. What about you?
Yeah, I like the Miami Dolphins. I actually got them a little lower on my list, so I get to them a little later. But my number 9 is the Baltimore Ravens. Lamar Jackson returns off an injury. Of course, you don't know how he's going to be, but at the same time, you can also make a prediction that he should be pretty healthy. I think he was pretty healthy before the season even ended last year. He just didn't want to play, and put himself in harm's way to miss out on the opportunity to make the money that he's making right now. But when you look at this team, man, they got so many weapons. You still got J.K. Dobbins at the running back position, Rashad Bateman, Zay Flowers, and Odell Beckham Jr. at the wide receiver position. Then you still bring back Mark Andrews at the tight end position. The offensive line is still legit, still in place. And then the defense is, it looks pretty good. You got Roquan Smith. One person that just stands out to me, I love Kyle Hamilton. I actually want the Falcons to draft him that year. You got Marcus Williams, Marlon Humphrey. So I just feel like the Baltimore Ravens should be able to make some more noise this year, and take this team to a whole nother level with with Lamar Jackson actually having real weapons that he can kind of utilize. They're going to be a dangerous team when it comes to like these gadget plays, man. You got Odell Beckham who can create, who can make plays after the catch. Zay Flowers, who's a speedster, and then you got Lamar Jackson, who you got to worry about. So it's gonna be pretty tough to stop the Baltimore Ravens. And Rashad Bateman is real good as well. And then of course you still got the security blanket, Mark Andrews. So it's gonna be tough to stop the Baltimore Ravens. And I think Lamar Jackson should have a good season. I always give him a lot of flack, but this year I feel like he should be able to to do some great things this year with these weapons.
Nah, and the other thing that can't be understated is them swapping out their offensive coordinator. Um,
Mm-hmm.
to get Ty Munkin from
Yep.
Georgia, where and again, it's a college OC, but a lot of college offensive coordinators are translated well to the NFL. And
Yeah.
especially because now the NFL has predicated or kind of modeled a lot of their offenses off of college and spread and
Yeah.
having a lot of movement and a lot of versatility in that way and a lot of RPOs. So again, that's a strong pick. Not to mention, like you said, if you rewind the clock last year to this year, Rashad Bateman was considered going into the season their number one. Now
Mm-hmm.
he's probably the third or fourth receiving option. And again, he was a first or second round pick, not too long ago. So
Mm-hmm.
they do have an embarrassment of riches on paper at least. But if there's one player and one team, when healthy, that will win a ton of games, it's likely going to be the Ravens. I mean, when Lamar Jackson is healthy and engaged and he's not in a contract dispute, he's averaged double digit wins in the regular season his entire career. So
Yeah.
it's not outside of the realm of possibility that again they can contend or at least give Pat Burrow and the Bengals a run for their money in that AFC North. So I love the pick.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Um, Now, was that 8? Just want to
Yeah.
make
We
sure I'm
had
not.
eight.
All right,
Number
perfect.
8.
Okay, so this team, I'm not sold on them, but I still like what I see enough to pick them at number 8. I know that's an underhanded compliment, but considering who it is, it'll be fair. I like the LA Chargers for my number 18. Looks like I'm holding down the fort. There he is. Okay.
Okay.
So to recap for you, second time for the audience, I have the LA Chargers as my number 18. And again, I think I'm just really high on offensive coordinators mainly because my top two teams, I've seen what offensive play, like when you expand the offensive playbook and you get more creative, I see how that can translate to wins in this modern NBA, or excuse me, NFL. So again, Kellen Moore going over there with Herbert, who, he's the second coming of Dan Marino, let some people tell it. But they have a lot of skill positions, or a lot of skill on the offensive side of the ball. And the defense should be better this year. So, I mean, yes, they're in the AFC West. So, I mean, but somebody has to come in second place, right? It can't just be the Kansas City Chiefs. And I believe that they're the team that will be. I don't think they're better than the Chiefs, so I don't see them having enough firepower to go win for win in that division and win that division. But I do see them. I can see them between 10 and 12 wins, which should be high enough to be, one of the top teams in the AFC, but not in the upper echelon.
Got you. I actually kind of like kept the LA Chargers off my list, but I get to them a little later. Number 8 for me is the Miami Dolphins. You stated them before. I just think with these weapons, Tua Tagovailoa, he could just put together a lengthy season where he could play the entire season healthy. I think this yards, and Tyreek could have probably still went over 2,000 if he really wanted to. But I believe that this Miami Dolphins team is going to be dangerous. That division is actually going to be dangerous. The Jets, Miami, Buffalo. The weakest team is probably New England, and but at the same time, it's still Bill Belichick. So but I got the Miami Dolphins. I don't know why I keep going out. Can you hear me?
Hey, it's hard work, but we just bounced back. Yeah, I hear you, man. Uh-oh. Oh, looks like we're having a little bit of technical difficulties, folks. My co-host should be back shortly. Look at that. I spoke you up.
Okay, we back. Can you hear me?
Yep, I can hear you, man.
Okay.
Fire away.
Yeah, I'm ready to go to that number 7.
Okay, so my number 7 team is actually the Baltimore Ravens. So you've already explained why they should be on this top 10. I don't need to rehash it. Jim Harbaugh, we trust, I guess. Regular season champ. So I got them as number 7. I really like what they're doing. I really, really like what they're doing over there, and I think they're going to surprise a lot of people. But there's a lot of I gotta prove it in that team. If you think about it, Lamar Jackson, he has to prove that the money is worth it. Again, Ty Monken has to prove that it wasn't just the skill players at Georgia that made that offense what it was. He has to prove his stake in it. Again, OBJ has to prove that he's healthy and he hasn't lost a step, because there are a lot of talented wideouts over the course of us watching NFL football, where they peak and they have like a good 5 to 7 year run, and then they hit one injury and then another injury, and the next thing you know, they're out of the league.
Yeah.
Sometimes overpaid along the way. So he has to prove that, okay, I'm in my 10th NFL season. I'm hitting the 30-year mark in age. I got a lot of miles on these tires, but I can still get you where you want to go.
Yep.
So we'll see. If they're getting the LA Rams version of him before he got that injury, That's going to be one of the steals of the NFL season. But if he's more like the Cleveland Browns version, then it's going to be tough sledding because there's so much predicated on him taking off pressure from a lot of other guys. And yes, they have a lot of other pieces, but outside of Mark Andrews, they're kind of green on that side of the ball in terms of pass catchers and offensive skill players. And, they're going to play solid defense. That's in their calling cards. But, yep, that's who I got.
Okay. Yeah, my number seven is actually the Buffalo Bills. I just think that Josh Allen, if he could just learn how to stay out of harm's way and actually be a little bit more comfortable in the pocket. I get it. He's a big body, want to run linebackers over and all that good stuff. But I feel like sometimes he just doesn't make the play in the key moments. They have the talent. You have a Stephon Diggs, you have a Gabe Davis, you have a Dawson Knox. Now I think you still have Devin Singletary as your running back, but then I think they also have James Cook, who's going to be getting some carries as well. However, we Okay, can you hear me?
I can hear you, Chief.
Okay, yeah, but for the last few years, you've had the talent on paper, but you got to put it together. You got to be able to get over that hump. And I think hopefully the Buffalo Bills will be able to do that. Hopefully Von Miller will actually return so that they can get this defense together. They launched on Von Miller and he got hurt early last year. I think he got hurt in the preseason actually, so he wasn't even able to play last year. Tre'Davious White was out for a long time last year. You get him back, so hopefully this Buffalo Bills team can get some things going and try to beat the elite teams. I feel like a lot of times they beat the teams that they're supposed to beat, but when they get to the playoffs, it's like they can't beat the teams that they have to go through in order to get to that Super Bowl. But I got them at rank number 7 this year.
Okay. I like it. So for my number 6 team, and I realized I left a team out, and I don't even care, and I'm gonna keep it at that. my number and it'll make more sense, I guess, when we go through the rest of the list. All right, so my number 6 team, and I realize I'm a little high on them, but I don't care. It's my list. Deal with it. I got the Jets. Sitting right outside of the top 5 at number 6. I know that probably is a little rich, especially because we haven't seen a lot of Aaron Rodgers. We don't know what kind of Aaron Rodgers we're going to get. We don't know if the defense were they a one-year wonder, were they a one-hit wonder? Can they replicate it now that they have the target on their back? Do they have the right pieces in terms of the head coach? Is this head coach the right head coach to maximize the talent on both sides of the ball? Or could this be a Chip Kelly a year too late?
Yep.
But we'll see. I mean, again, this team won about 7 games with basically you and me playing quarterback, right? So now this year they went out and got a surefire first ballot Hall of Famer, who some people said, okay, he's a little bit compromised, but he's still good enough, right? We've seen that over the past 2 seasons. One season they flamed out, if you can remember what happened to the Broncos, and a couple years before that, a team went and won the chip in the Rams, where they went out and got Matthew Stafford, who I do believe is a Hall of Famer. Maybe not first ballot, but I do believe he's a Hall of Famer. So I do like what I see from them. And yes, they got the Hard Knocks thing, and there's a whole lot of Jets propaganda. Maybe I'm falling victim to it, but again, I'm of the mind somebody like Aaron Rodgers has got to be good for an extra 2 to 3 wins, right?
Yeah.
And if that's the case, they're a playoff team.
Right. No, I think you were reading my notes. I got the Jets as number 6 as well. Like you said, I believe that they have the talent. This team last year surprised a lot of people, especially with that defense and what we kept saying last year. Man, they are a quarterback away. They just need a quarterback, and they went out there and they went and got Aaron Rodgers, who we know what Aaron Rodgers is able to do, what he has been able to do his whole career. Even as he's getting on the back end of his career, he's still an elite quarterback who can contend for the MVP every year. Aaron Rodgers' problem is when it's time for the rubber to meet the road in the playoffs. He could probably get you maybe to the championship game, but he haven't been able to get back to that Super Bowl. And I just think that Aaron Rodgers. I hope that he can do it, but if I had to bet on it, I'm probably thinking that the same thing that you're thinking, man. Are the Jets really ready for that step? That to take that step forward. I really like their defense, but at the same time, they still have a lot of holes. Yeah, you got Sauce Gardner, you do have Quentin Williams, you do have C.J. Mosley. But other than that, I mean, you pretty much working with just some guys that you hope work out. And then I think a lot of times you have to judge teams based on that second year after teams have time to really like see what you're doing. And then offensively, I mean, they have a lot of weapons. You bring in some players like Allen Lazard, Randall Cobb, who Aaron Rodgers is very comfortable with. But then you also have a Garrett Wilson Jr., who was offensive rookie of the year last year. Also, you bring back Brees Hall, who could have been offensive rookie last year if he didn't get hurt. And then you bring in a Dalvin Cook, who can hopefully take up some of those carries that Brees Hall won't have to take. But at the same time, okay, can you hear me?
I can hear you, man.
Okay. Yeah, so it's a lot of pressure with the New York Jets. Everybody expecting them to, make it to the Super Bowl, and I just don't think that they're ready for that yet. I do think that they can make it to the playoffs. I think they can be competitive, but I don't know if they can beat teams like the Cincinnati Bengals or the Chiefs. People like who has the one man that can beat you. I just don't feel like they can match up with teams like Cincinnati, who has three weapons on the outside, and a running back and a stout defense with a good, great, elite quarterback. So right now the jury is still out, but right now on paper, they look good. They look good. Last time we seen one of these dream teams put together, we saw what happened when everybody was thinking that they were supposed to go to the Super Bowl. The thing about football, it's not like basketball. If you have a stat team in basketball, most likely you can make it. In football, you can have the best players at every position. They still have to play the game, and they still have to work as a team. So I just think that the hype is too high for the. Okay, can you hear me now? Yeah, we keep
We,
going at.
you were at the hype was too high for the Jets.
Yeah, I just feel like the hype is too high, and right now, based on paper, I gotta put them in. But I think when the season get going, I don't know if they're gonna be able to take that. I don't know if they're gonna be able to handle that pressure, especially you're already in New York. That
Right.
already adds pressure. Plus, it heightens when they have the expectation for you to make it to the Super Bowl. So I just don't think that they're ready. I don't think they have the right coach in position to even get them to that point when the rubber needs to hit the road. Your coaching do matter. Coaching does matter, and I just feel like you can't. I think they've been getting a lot of praise to Aaron Rodgers. When you look at them Hard Knock videos, man, they've been hyping Aaron Rodgers up. But I'm not saying he's not worth the. He's not a great quarterback. He is. However, his Super Bowl success is so far gone that
Right.
we forget that he even won a Super Bowl sometimes.
Right.
But at the same time, right now on paper, it looks good. So I got to give it to him right now.
If it weren't for that Super Bowl, I believe you would be calling him And by him, I mean Aaron Rodgers, the regular season champ instead of Lamar Jackson. But I digress.
Exactly.
Now, the other thing with it too, to go back to your basketball analogy, I think part of it is, in basketball they play 82 games, so they have maybe about a third of the season to figure it out, even with the talent. But in the NFL, a third of the season, if you didn't figure it out by then, you're usually out of the race.
Mm-hmm.
So, like you said, they have a slim margin of error. Yes, they have talent on both sides of the ball. Yes, their defense should carry them through a lot of the games, and their offense should be able to like maintain a lead if and when they do, or if the game is close, they should have the quarterback and the offense and the pieces that they can steal a couple games when they're close. Last year, if it was close, they didn't have the horses in the stable to do that. Now they should. But again, a lot of this stuff is should. And I think to cross that threshold between should and an expectation, a
Yeah.
realistic expectation, they're probably the last team, at least on my list, where should is in the conversation outside of should win the Super Bowl.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I think that's a solid pick, obviously, because I picked it first, or I said it first. But my number 5 team should be higher on this list. But there's some reasons why, and I'll go into that. I got the Bills at number 5. On paper, arguably the greatest NFL quarterback, or at least in the conversation. Yes, he got leapfrogged by a guy like Joe Burrow, and of course he was at one point in the conversation with Patrick Mahomes as the guy.
Mm-hmm.
But when he's on, he's on, and when he's off, he's still good, but he's not great.
Yeah.
And to get past those two, as far as quarterbacks are concerned, you have to be great, and you have to be consistently great. That means great with the football. That means great with making decisions. That means great in crunch time situations. And I haven't seen enough of that from him consistently to put him in that top 3 category just yet.
Mm-hmm.
But he's right there. Maybe 3B to whoever 3A is, as far as quarterback play. Now, they did lose some pieces, but that's any NFL team. And again, Von Miller, we don't know if he's going to be 100% whenever he plays. We don't know if he's going to be on pitch count. And it's not like this is Von Miller like 7-8 seasons ago, or even 3 seasons ago.
Mm-hmm.
This is another significant injury on an older player, who is as great as he was when we last saw him fully healthy. He's still on the back 9 of his career. So a lot of question marks there. And then on top of it, yes, I did like the Dalton Kincaid pick that they picked in the NFL draft. I think that's going to give them a little more balance on the offense, so that they're not constantly going to Diggs and Gabe Davis, and it gives their offense another dimension. But again, he's a rookie, so we don't know what we're going to get out of him. But I do like him as an addition. And again, that defense is going to have to prove a lot, because they were a major part of the problem. And I get it. They had a lot of injuries last year, especially in the secondary. But they're in the AFC East, so there's going to be a slim margin of error. Because all of the teams in that division have improved, all of them. And that might arguably be the best or most competitive division in football this year, at least on paper.
Yeah.
So we'll see. But I like the Bills at number 5. If they put it together, they can get the first Super Bowl win in their franchise's history, in their first appearance since the early 90s with the Jim Kelly days. But if they don't, it'll be more of the same. And who's to say they won't break up that team, or at least get rid of the coaching staff, or make some changes along the way. So I
Yeah.
got the Bills at number 5. I believe this is a make or break year for them as they're currently constructed.
Yeah, it's definitely got to be a make or break year. I mean, you can't
Mm-hmm.
keep going out here every year bringing the same team back and expecting different results.
Mm-hmm.
Last year, like I said, you went for it with Von Miller. You put a lot on his expectations based on his success.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Yeah, I don't know why I keep going out, but but yeah, they underperforming, have too much talent to continue to go out and can't beat the teams that they need to beat, the elite teams. But for me, number 5 is actually the Kansas City Chiefs. And I know this is probably like this is not based on the last game, even though you can look at that game and you like Patrick Mahomes ain't got no help out there. I don't believe that Tony. I don't believe that Kadarius Toney was a bad pickup. I just think
Right.
that maybe Patrick Mahomes was putting a little bit too much extra seasoning on the ball for him in them key moments. But at the same time, they don't keep going out. They have to re-sign Christian Jones.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I guess give him some extra money. But Kelsey right now he's injured. Patrick Mahomes lost a key player on his offensive lineman, Orlando Brown.
Right.
Oh, this is frustrating. Okay, can you? Am I
You
going out on your side?
you at least on my side you are. The last thing we heard was you talking about Orlando Brown and his departure.
Yeah,
And
yeah. Losing Orlando Brown to that offensive line just, I think kind of hurt the Kansas City Chiefs. They were unable to run the ball against the Lions. They were unable to block Aiden Hutchinson. And that, like I said, that game could have went another way if you had Kelsey. But right now, they don't look like they have. If he has to play a game like he played last game, I don't see this team being too competitive. And you got to go sign Chris Jones back to that defense because they needed some help. Jared Goff was able to read the field yesterday. They were able to kind of run the ball with Gibbs and David Montgomery. So I think you're gonna need some extra help. But right now, the Kansas City Chiefs, based on kind of what I saw yesterday, I mean on Thursday night football, plus based on this roster, I just don't feel like they have the talent that they need to compete in this AFC. But because they do have Patrick Mahomes and Kelsey, that makes it where okay, we know they can still be dangerous as the year goes on. But what are they going to do without if Kelsey doesn't if Kelsey is not there and they have to rely on the weapons that they have? You got to get better. So I got the Kansas City Chiefs at number 5.
that's fair. Now, I think that's fair, but to give a little grace to our friend Kadarius Toney, I mean, he's not really our friend. I don't know him personally. I don't know if you do, but I mean, the man was injured for most of the preseason,
Mm-hmm.
and he clearly was rusty in that game.
Yeah.
But he proved that he's a serviceable, if not enough, talented player
Mm-hmm.
last year with their Super Bowl run. So I think that's one of those things that'll get ironed out.
Yeah.
And depending on how long Kelsey is going to be out, if there's any head coach, especially in the offensive side of the ball, who can figure it out, is going to be a guy like
Yeah.
Big Red. And now I will say there's a space where multiple things can be true, and Stephen A. Smith pointed this out on First Take recently. That offense did look different. Now, granted, you're missing a Hall of Fame tight end, arguably the greatest tight end in the history of the NFL.
Mm-hmm.
but they also looked a little different offensively without Eric Bieniemy. So
Yes.
just
Yes.
just saying. And again,
Right.
I'm a big proponent. OCs matter. Unless you're a guy like Sean McVay, and Andy Reid can adjust, like I said, but you can clearly see there was a loss losing Eric Bieniemy, at least in one game. And
Mm-hmm.
it's not going to get easier because, again, after that game, they have the Jacksonville Jaguars
Yep.
coming, who should be more improved on both sides of the ball, but especially on offense. So we'll see. We'll see because I don't. If they go 0-2 or God forbid 0-3 in that division in that conference,
Mm-hmm.
that's not looking good. Not looking good.
Yep.
But if there's any team, any head coach, any quarterback that could at least steady the troops, it's the Kansas City Chiefs and Patrick Mahomes. So we'll see.
Yep.
Should be
Yep.
interesting.
Yeah. Number 4.
So number 4 for me is those guys in the AFC North. I got the Bengals, led by one Joe Burrow, the
Yep.
money man. So
Got that money, man.
he got that money, and the thing is, they might have slightly underpaid. That's the crazy part.
Mm-hmm.
They might have slightly underpaid for him. Even though he's coming into the season, I think he has another calf injury, but he had one last year that didn't matter. He had a lacerated kidney the year before that didn't matter. Like, the guy, but all these injuries, I'm starting to take note. Now, that matters too. But so far so good with that team. Again, they still have their core intact. Now they did lose. I think losing Jesse Bates is going to matter.
Yeah.
That is going to matter. But one team's loss is another's game, as you'll find out soon. I do believe that he's a good enough player that they will miss his apps. They will miss his presence in the secondary. But is it enough for them to drop out of being one of the top 3 or 4 teams in the AFC? I don't think so.
Right.
Now, I believe that this is a make or break year for their head coach, though, because Zach Taylor has had the same team. Now, granted, he got into a Super Bowl, recently, as recent as 3 years ago.
AFC Championship.
He got into an AFC Championship, but again, at what point do you start to feel like a head coach is plateaued with the talent around him? Some would argue a better head coach, quote unquote, might have already won a Super Bowl with this talented of a team. So we'll see. But I like what they have on paper. Give me another year of a motivated Joe Burrow who now is financially secure. He doesn't have to worry about that. There's none of those questions going on throughout the season. We'll see. But yeah, that's my number 4, the Bengals.
Yeah, I got the same team, the Cincinnati Bengals as well at number 4. Like I said, Joe Burrow to me is if not the number 1. I think Patrick Mahomes still is the number 1 quarterback in my opinion right now. But Joe Burrow is definitely hit. Okay.
I get
Jamar
you
Chase T.
number 1 than with Joe Burrow.
Yeah. With this talent still around him, Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, Tyler Boyd. You add in Orlando Brown Jr. to protect them because we know Joe Burrow was probably one of the most sacked quarterbacks in the last 2 years, even though he still made it to the Super Bowl and still made it to the AFC Championship. So you add some protection to him on his blind side. And then when you look at that defense, you got a pretty legit defense. Led by I think Trey Hendrickson is a nice piece for them. Sam Harbert, we know what them boys can do. And like you said, they did lose Jesse Bates, but I don't think it was a big enough loss for them to lose that back end. I think they still are pretty solid. And I just like the Bengals. I just like the Bengals winning that AFC North, probably competing with the Baltimore Ravens. Who knows? If Deshaun Watson shows up, maybe the Browns. And then Pittsburgh is not a, is still, I think quarterback is their question. But everywhere else they're pretty solid, But at the same time, the Pittsburgh Steelers are probably the worst team in this division. And that's still like they're still a team that can probably go out there and compete with anybody. But I think the Cincinnati Bengals right now is my favorite team in that AFC North. And I think they're going to continue to be good. Maybe compete against the Kansas City Chiefs again. I don't know. But at the same time, the Cincinnati Bengals are still a legit team. But I do agree with you. I do think if Zach Taylor can't coach this team at least to an AFC Championship game, and I'm not saying go in there and lose, but if you do lose, I think they can pull it out. Maybe they can pull it out against the Chiefs. Okay. They just couldn't pull it out maybe against the Chiefs, or maybe it has to be an elite team that they couldn't pull it out against. Sorry. But yeah, so I'm still high on the on the Cincinnati Bengals. Just because I love Joe Burrow and I love those weapons. Jamar Chase to me is either 1A, 1B as far as the best receiver in the league right now. It could be Justin Jefferson, but I gotta go with the Cincinnati Bengals as my number 14.
I'm not mad at it. That's a good pick, man. Um,
Top
so
three.
numbers, yeah. Now we get into the nitty gritty. Um,
Mm-hmm.
Now I suspect that we'll probably have similar teams, just maybe a different order, with the exception of maybe one, and it'll be my number three team because I believe you had them at number five. Give me Big Red and my homeboy. We're gonna go with the Kansas City Chiefs. Now, yes, you did a great job of articulating why you felt like they were number five, um, and maybe I just am basing this too much on what they've done in the past, but that core is still intact. Yes, I know we just said that Travis Kelsey is up in the air, and yes, I know we said that um, Orlando Brown Jr. and Eric Bieniemy are no longer there. And yes, I said, that, or we talked about Kadarius Toney and, you know, what that looks like now. But there's something about that team, that quarterback, that head coach that kind of feels like it's immune to a lot of the things that other teams would have slippage with. Case in point, like they lose Tyreek Hill going into this previous season. Didn't matter. They pick up castaways from other teams. Marquez Valdez Scantling and Juju Smith Schuster, and they pick a seventh round pick as your running back, even though they had a higher draft pick or a higher younger um, running back last year. I forget his name. I believe he played with LSU. Um, had hyphenated name. Anyway, now I'm rambling. But the point being, I believe that they have enough of the core pieces that they can make it work. Now, the one caveat is if this Chris Jones situation doesn't get ironed out within the next like 2 to 3 weeks, this could change because what I will say is offensively, I think they have the slimmest margin of error that they've had in the Patrick Mahomes, Andy Reid era, and Travis Kelsey era. Because again, with me saying all the things I'm saying, outside of last game, I think there was only one game in which in Patrick Mahomes' career that he didn't play without Travis Kelsey, and I believe it was a couple years ago when Travis Kelce was out due to COVID. Outside of that, that's been the one constant, and of course Andy Reid. But even with that, they have a lot of the same things. They have a lot of the same makeup. They went and got Matt Nagy, who was a part of their staff during a couple of their Super Bowl runs before he went and flamed out in Chicago. So having him should help stop the bleeding a little, but he's no Eric Bieniemy, clearly.
Right.
So there is going to be somewhat of a drop off with him calling and having full control of the offense, but not too much because Andy Reid is kind of a buffer there. We'll see what happens defensively. That's the other reason why I feel like this offense has so little margin for error, because you don't have key skill players at the wideout position. Your best offensive threat is compromised whenever he does play, because knee injuries, they don't just go away in a week or two, and they tend to linger, similar to like hamstring, and even depending on your position, calf injuries. Once you've got those soft tissue injuries, it's very easy for that to be re-aggravated or worsened. Case in point, Cooper Kupp is going to be on the IR, and there goes that. So I'm saying all that to say, yes, there are a lot of things, there are a lot of challenges that they have, but again, they've had a lot of these different challenges over the years. Compromised offensive line play, and they still made it, pretty much to a Super Bowl. Lost it to arguably the greatest quarterback in the history of the game. They come back, win it. Then they lose a key piece here and there. Still doesn't matter. They make it to another Super Bowl, win it against a historically great offensively and defensive team in the Eagles. So again, maybe I'm just, again, a believer that they have enough. But we'll see. This, I believe, is going to be a make or break year, not necessarily for the head coach and not necessarily for those guys, but for those wideouts. Because I don't think, let's say Patrick Mahomes throws for, because he was close to 5,000 passing yards off the top of my head. But let's say he has a slightly down year and he only throws for 4,000 yards, and he only throws for 30 touchdowns. And let's say those interceptions go up to Dak Prescott territory, to like the 12 to 17 range. I don't see that being enough to get them to the Super Bowl. I don't. And I could see them making wholesale sweeping changes with their wideout skill players. So we'll see. But I still like them at number 3 because I think they have enough, and I do believe that they'll have Travis Kelce healthy for the majority of the season. And they'll get Chris Jones back. So if that happens, they're going to be in the top 3 of the NFL. If not, they might be middle of the pack. We'll see.
Got you. Number 3, for me, got to go to the Dallas Cowboys, unfortunately. I think the Dallas Cowboys season is based on what can Dak do. Has Dak taken that step forward? In the regular season, the Cowboys, they do their thing. Their problem is when the expectations are high, that's when the higher they get, the harder to fall. And every year they flame out. The last 2 years losing to San Francisco in Dallas Cowboys fashion has been a disappointment. I think just like how we said, Zach Taylor is on the hot seat. I think Mike McCarthy got to be on the hot seat. If they can't at least get to an NFC Championship game, I just don't see how you bring McCarthy back as the head coach, especially when he pretty much fired Kellen Moore last year. He's taking up the offensive play calling. You still got Dan Quinn, who adding that pressure to wanting to take over as that head coach. I think Jerry Jones, because he's getting closer to the end of, I don't want to say he's gonna die, but he's on the closer end of that. He's not lasting another 10 years. I mean, he could, but
20 years.
And I just feel like he got to go for it right now. If he want to get a championship, you got to go out there and get a real head coach. And I think that this defense is going to be stout. I mean, they're stout every year, ever since, especially with Michael Parsons leading the way. You add Stephon Gilmore to this defense. So I think that's going to be able to hold coverage a little bit longer. Where you got Stephon on one side and Trayvon Diggs on the other side, and then you got Michael Parsons coming in at you. I think they should be pretty solid on the defensive side of the ball. It's just this offensive side of the ball. Can Dak Prescott take that step forward and make the key throws when he need to make them? You got weapons. You got CeeDee Lamb. You brought in Brandon Cooks. You have Michael Gallup, and then you got Tony Pollard in the backfield. I've been hearing a lot of rumors about this Deuce Vaughn guy who got the speed. So can you bring this thing together? You have a pretty good offensive line. Okay, I think the Dallas Cowboys are starting to get a little fed up with that Prescott, especially after paying him all that money. It's time for him to start, man.
Dig it.
Yeah. Okay.
Dig it. So,
Yeah.
were you
Oh
got
no, I
anything else?
think the Dallas Cowboys defense is going to lead the way, and they're going to probably be one of the top, if not the top defense in the league. And I swear it always go out when I'm talking.
I don't know, man. I don't know.
But
Gotta love technology, Chief. Gotta love technology. Unless you out there in the sticks. So so I will proudly announce that I have, spoiler alert, the Cowboys are not on my list. At all. Don't care.
Wow.
So I'm of the Stephen A. Smith school of thought. Just wait, be patient. They will derail themselves. Don't even worry about it.
Oh yeah.
And it's not just because whatever, it's Dallas. But yes, on paper they have a lot of the things. But I do not believe in Mike McCarthy as a head coach. So giving him more responsibilities when he can't handle simple play clock management,
Yes.
that's not a recipe for success. It's not. And yes, they have Micah Parsons, who is your pick for Defensive Player of the Year going into the season. And rightfully so. I'm low-key kicking myself that I didn't pick him, but I think I'm still safe with Myles Garrett. That being said, the problem that I have with them is there's a lot of we should.
Yeah.
And even when I look through my top 5, I don't see a team that I would swap out for them. When I look through my top 10, I still like a lot of these teams better in terms of head coaching, in terms of skilled players. And now, granted, they have a lot of good pieces. Adding Stephon Gilmore is going to significantly help Trayvon Diggs. There's no way around that.
Yep.
Adding Brandon Cook, who was on the Rams at one point, and he did help us to get to a Super Bowl. We lost it, but that will help that offense. But to what end? Because I don't trust Dakota Prescott. And he's not Dak until he shows me something more than what he's shown over the past 3 or 4 years, which is middle of the road quarterback play. He can be elite in spurts, right? But he's not elite. And I think in order to beat the teams that that the Dallas Cowboys are going to need to beat, he can't be good or decent anymore. He has to take that leap. And he's been the quarterback for how long? I mean, Tony Romo's been out of the league for a minute now.
Right.
And I'm kind of the mind that he is who he is. Just like people were believing that Zeke, no disrespect to Zeke, he's no longer a part of the team, but he was a big part of their offense for years. But after a couple of seasons, it was like, oh no, this is it. This is who he is. And they
Exactly.
moved on. So I think, again, like you said, it's a make or break year for Mike McCarthy, who I believe has the hottest of all seats of all head coaches, possibly in North American sports, let
Yep.
alone the NFL. I
Right.
truly believe, let's say they have 10 wins this year. He's not going to be the head coach next year.
No.
Guaranteed, I stand by.
Right.
Let's say they win a playoff game. He's still not going to be, the head coach of that team. Name
Yep.
another head coach in the NFL who, if they get 10 wins and they win a playoff series, a game, that they're going to lose their job.
Right.
There aren't a whole lot. It might be a one-person list, and he's at the top of that list. Not to mention, like you said, Dan Quinn has done it in this league, and he's done it without having to call plays offensively. If he
Yep.
gets the right OC with that team and those skill positions, and then they swap out a quarterback, or make some trades and pick. But I don't think they're gonna. I don't even think they would go out and like trade up in the draft, let's say, to get a number one overall pick kind of quarterback situation. They would likely have to sign someone in the offseason.
Yep.
And who would that be? Or put all their eggs in an unproven basket of Trey Lance.
Exactly.
So Dakota has a lot riding on this season. But like I've said before, I don't have any faith in him or McCarthy. I think they'll both have solid seasons, but will that be enough to compete for a championship this season? No. Hence why they're off my list entirely. And I said a lot of that, but I didn't talk about who my number 2 team is, and I'll get to that shortly. So I have, and I hate to do this with this shirt on and being a Rams fan, but I have the 49ers the number 2. They have, the reigning defensive player of the year, who just got his bag. He's gonna be in game shape. I mean, the guy always is in Nick Bosa. They went out and got Hargrave from the Eagles, so they poached from the op. Brock Purdy's coming back for another year, and that's good on one front on paper because it's like, okay, he has another year under his belt. He's healthy. He didn't have to play through the preseason. He has another year in that offense. He has another year to gain more command of it. And he's also still playing with house money because they don't need him to be elite to win. If he even has any of the type of seasons that Dak Prescott had, they're likely going to be in the Super Bowl or at minimum in the NFC Championship. Like to me, that's their floor, which is wild, right? If he's a middle of the road to slightly above average quarterback, they're definitely a playoff team, right? Unless they have some sort of major injury. And even with that, they still have enough to overcome most injuries relative to other teams. They're stacked on all 3 levels of the defense, whether it's Hargrave and Eric Armstead, or if you go to the middle, then you got Fred Warner. And then if you go to the secondary, they got Haflanga as one of the DBs. Like, I mean, this team is just oozing with talent. And they did all of this with some players having down years. Like, Kittle didn't really go off until halfway into the second season. Imagine if he starts hot. Scary proposition. Their wideouts, Ayuk is becoming a force to be reckoned with now. He's a legitimate number 2 option. And on a lot of teams, he would be their number 1 guy.
Yep.
And he's not even, and to think, like, even though I'm an Eagles fan, I can admit we don't know what would have happened if Brock Purdy would have played that whole game. We don't. We might be talking about a different Super Bowl. and I'm adult enough to admit that, right? So another year of Brock Purdy, him healthy, that team pretty much not losing anything and then adding pieces. I mean, yeah, they lost Trey Lance, but they didn't need him anyway.
Right.
They didn't use him anyway.
Right.
So, man,
He was hurt.
right, he was hurt, man. So they're running the same team back in a weakened NFC West division.
Mm-hmm.
So they're probably gonna mess around and win anywhere from 12 to 13 games, maybe 11, if some things don't bounce their way. Crazy. They'll probably be in the NFC Championship again. They might have enough to even win it this year. They might. There have been quarterbacks or teams that have won with less. Just saying.
Yep.
So that's my number 2. Who you got?
Same team, San Francisco. Brock Purdy last year had a great year. Here's the year that you got to prove can you repeat that and be consistent. And I think with the talent around him, he can be. I actually like Brock Purdy. You did bring in Sam Darnold to be his backup and Brandon Allen, so they gonna need Brock Purdy. But Christian. Oh, I didn't hear you.
No, I'm agreeing with you.
Oh, yeah, but Christian McCaffrey, Elijah Mitchell comes back. You're pretty stout in the run game, and then you got Deebo Samuel who can line up in the backfield as well and be a gadget player. Brandon Ayuk, who came out last year and pretty had a pretty decent season. I look to see him take it to another level this year. And then like you said, George Kittle, one of the best tight ends in the league as well. If he can get healthy, I know he's questionable going into this game, so I'm pretty sure he's dealing with some kind of injury. But at the same time, if you can get a healthy George Kittle, who can help Brock Purdy be that safety blanket for Brock Purdy, I think they could be very dangerous. And then when you look at that defensive side of the ball, you alluded to it. Adding Javon Hargrove to this already stout defensive line with Drake Jackson, a second-year player out of USC. Rushing the quarterback, Arik Armstead, like I said, Javon Hargrove, and then you got Nick Bosa to lead the way with the Drake Greenlaw, Fred Warner, probably one of the best linebacker crews. And then, on the back end, they don't really have much talent when it comes to the DBs. But at the same time, when you got a pass rush and a defensive line and a line, the front seven, the way they are, they can help create some turnovers. But I think the defense is good enough to get this to probably have one of the top defenses in the league. San Francisco normally has a good little defense, and if Brock Purdy can just give us what he gave us last year without the injury in the playoffs, I think that, like you said, they have a chance to be in that Super Bowl or at least make it to that conference championship game and probably play one of the top teams in the NFC. But I like this team. Kyle. The only thing about it, Kyle Shanahan, I say it all the time. He knows how to get in his own way. He has the talent. I don't know what it is, man. He just get in his own way every time. He wants to be known as an offensive guru, an offensive genius, and he does, and he wants to do that at the wrong time. And I think that's what's been equating to a loss in the NFC Championship game. So we'll see what happens this year. Hopefully he can, just calm down, Kyle Shanahan. I mean, I don't want you to win because you know what you did to us. And I never forgive me for that. But at the same time, they have the talent. You just gotta put it together in the time that you need it the most, and that's the NFC Championship game.
So one pushback or rebuttal to your point about this team, and I hate to do it, but in the interest of being fair and objective, to say that they have no talent on the DB side of the ball when Hufanga was an All-Pro last year with like 100 tackles, 4 interceptions, a couple sacks, and a return for TD. I get it. If you're talking about corners, okay, fine. You got me there. But I hate to admit this, but I like this guy. And he gives me a little like a poor man's lesser version of Troy Polamalu in the way he plays, and it's not just because he's
We
Polamalu,
went to the same school.
but he also and he went to the same school, but he plays similarly to the way he used to play, where he give you a little bit of everything. If you need him to be in the box and make a short tackle, he's going to do it. He's been doing that for a couple of seasons now. He can cover well enough because you don't get 4 picks unless you can cover, especially out in space. And again, like I don't remember. And again, watching him twice a year when the Rams played them, there were very few plays that I'm like, oh well, he might have been out of position or he looked beat. So just saying that's my only pushback, but that's fair. My number one team, and it's not because I'm a homer, but it does feel nice to be able to say that I believe the Philadelphia Eagles are the number one team coming into the season, and that will likely remain for most, if not all, of the season. Now, could there be some slippage? Could a team or a couple of teams leapfrog them? I believe so because it's that competitive. But from top to bottom, this team is stacked and loaded. And yes, they did have some departures, but it was addition by subtraction. They got younger and cheaper and more athletic.
Yeah. Yeah.
and they went to the Super Bowl last year. So, you know what I'm saying? Like, you know, now you got Jalen Carter, N'Kobe Dean, Nolan Smith. What's the other kid? Carter? Did I say?
Jalen Carter.
Jalen Carter. Like they, you know, and when Jalen Carter was in last year, they were pretty solid in running the ball. That was the only kind of wart that you saw from this Eagles team. They could get
talking about Jordan Davis.
Sorry, Jordan Davis. Thank you. Jordan Davis. When he was in, you know, they looked really, really good.
Yep.
On all 3 levels of the defense. But when he got injured and was out, and that's even with, you know, some of these veterans like Hargrave and, you know, Brandon Graham and all these guys that they have on the defensive line. When he was out, it was a noticeable difference in their run defense. He's back, he's healthy, you know what I'm saying? And he's playing with a former teammate who is equally a beast. Come on, guys. Now, the one thing I will say, okay, yes, I've gone around and said offense, like OCs matter, offensive coordinators matter, and the departure of Shane Steichen, you might notice a difference, but I don't think it's going to be to the level where there's going to be a drop-off with Jalen Hurts because he still has arguably the best receiving core in the league. You know, Dallas Goedert's coming back. He's healthy. They went out and got Swift from, you know, Detroit. Who fits this offense a whole lot better.
Yeah.
And he's better utilized. He'll be better utilizing this offense. And he won't have to be the guy.
Yeah.
Because they have a running back by committee and they're all very, very talented. Yeah. Rashad Penny looks good. He looks healthy. And if there's any team that can coach and like training staff that can keep guys healthy, because I mean, granted, they've had injuries, but not to the level of like a lot of these other teams.
Yeah.
And if there's any team that has a next man up kind of setup, it's them. And they even went out and got a backup who has a ton of starting experience and is more better suited to the offense and the type of play calls that they want to run in getting Mariota. Now, there would be an absolute drop-off if he had to start a game, but he's solid enough that with those skill players, he could probably win a couple games just by not messing it up entirely. So I'm saying all that to say the Eagles look stacked. Yes, they lost Gardner Johnson, but they still have arguably the best corner tandem in the league. I mean, you know, they look legit. I don't think they're a one hit or 1 year wonder. And I think this year is where they really solidify that no, this is not a fluke. This is the expectation. This is the standard now. We're here and we're not going anywhere. And I
Mm-hmm.
think it's interesting because if I look at my top 10 list, there's only 3 NFC teams on my list, but 2 of the 3 are in the top 3.
Yeah.
So the NFC is definitely top heavy, but I also realized we didn't give love to like the Seattle Seahawks so far,
Mm-hmm.
unless you shock the world and pick them number 1. And I think you have maybe 3 or 4. No, you have 4 teams. So yours is almost about 50-50 because you have the Cowboys and I don't. So I'm saying
Yeah.
all this to say, yes, people are saying like
The AFC is a better conference. Yes, that is true. But I think it's a little overhyped that they're saying they're
so much better than the NFC. Maybe from the quarterback play, yeah, on paper, sure, but not in terms of team comparison. I think there are
a lot of teams that are going to surprise people in the NFC.
Yeah. I mean, we said the same thing last year. A lot of the AFC had a lot of talent. I think this year when you look at the divisions, I mean, you got 3 teams in like a good 2 divisions. The AFC North and maybe even the AFC West, depending on the Chargers. If the Raiders can get better, I think if Sean Payton can turn around the Broncos, you know what the Kansas City Chiefs gonna do. But and even the AFC East, you got the Bills, the Jets, and the Dolphins. So you got better teams and divisions. Whereas the NFC is pretty much the NFC East, and maybe the NFC West with San Francisco and Seattle, and then maybe the NFC North with Chicago, with Detroit, Minnesota, teams like that. But even still, it's still a lot of question marks in the NFC. But my number one team is of course the Eagles as well. Like I said, to me, I don't see any holes on their roster. Like, I mean, when you look at they like you said, probably one of the best receiving core. You add in Alumide Zaccheaus, who I believe is going to be a huge addition to y'all team. The offensive line is arguably one of the best offensive lines in the league. Jalen Hurts. My only question for Jalen Hurts is, can he repeat what he did last year and be consistent? And I believe he can, especially with a better running back suited for his style of play. A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith, we know what we're going to get out of them. Dallas Goedert, you know what you're going to get out of him. Like I said, you got a good offensive line. That defense is even more stout than they were last year, I believe. You add in, like you said, Jordan Davis come back healthy. You still have Brandon Graham, Fletcher Cox, of course. You add a Jalen Carter to this mix. You bring it. You still got a Josh Sweat, and then the Kobe Dean at that linebacker position. Zach Cunningham, it's pretty nice, a nice pickup, and then Hassan Reddick. We know what he can do as well. And then behind him, you got a Nolan Smith, who can pretty much be the same type of player that Hassan Reddick is. And then at the DB position, of course, Big Play Slay and James Bradbury. They're going to be pretty. They're going to still be nice together. You add in a Terrell Edmonds and a Reed Blankenship. I just think that there's really not many holes in this defense or this offense, and they should be able to, pick up what they did last year and probably even make it to another Super Bowl and actually win this Super Bowl. We know that Super Bowl we could have been having a different Super Bowl champion if those 2 mistakes didn't happen in that game, or maybe even 3 if you want to add in that kick return. I think it was a kick return or a punt return, but they was literally like a play away from winning the Super Bowl. But yeah, this year I definitely think they're going to be a little bit better. Like you said, losing that offensive coordinator may hinder the offense a little bit, but I don't think it's going to be enough to make a huge impact. And I like this Eagles team. I think they're going to be pretty nice. And you alluded to it earlier, Marcus Mariota. He's a solid backup. He can win you a couple of games if Jalen Hurts, goes out or something like that. Which Jalen Hurts, I don't see him going out. I mean, he's a Mack truck. He got the size on him. And last year he was able to show that he could be MVP. I think I had him as my MVP, I think I did have him as my MVP this year, candidate. But yeah, this Eagles team is dangerous, man. Don't nobody want to see the Eagles.
Yeah, the only real glaring hole that I see from them is, like you said, special teams play, and mainly because of their punter, not the kicker.
Yeah.
Because you're right. Like okay, fine. Jalen Hurts fumbled the ball. Okay. You know, but that didn't. He still, in my opinion, statistically outplayed Patrick Mahomes.
Mm-hmm.
So that clearly didn't matter that much. And it happened so early in the game that it didn't cause
The game to get out of hand. They came
Yeah.
right back and scored, and they were going bar for bar.
I honestly believe, okay, yes, the pass interference
Call that's been talked about ad nauseum, but I honestly believe
if that punt would have even been a touchback or no return, we would be talking about a different Super Bowl outcome. I wholeheartedly believe that. So that's the only glaring, like, you might want to get that corrected, but they're going with more of the same. So hopefully whoever, and I can't think of the special teams coach off the top of my head right now, but hopefully he can coach those guys into better punt coverage, better, kick return coverage. And maybe it was a mental block, mental error, and he's able to right his wrongs. But outside of that, I mean, yeah, they don't really have a glaring weakness. And yes, they lost both offensive and defensive coordinators, but a lot of teams do that, especially when they're like in the Super Bowl. Usually one, if not both of those coordinators get poached. That's just the way of the business because it's a copycat league. So
Right.
I don't see that being a big issue. Not to mention, on the offensive side of the ball, it's still Sirianni's offense.
Yep.
So, that's not going to matter. He'll probably have a little more control over the play calling, which is fine. And on the defensive side of the ball, whoever they decide who's the defensive coordinator, he's playing with house money.
Yeah.
So much talent. It's an embarrassment of riches. It'll be fine. And even to your point, I honestly believe if we would have had a backup quarterback of the caliber of like Mariota as opposed to Gardner Minshew, we probably would have won both, if not split those games that we lost.
Right.
So there's that.
Yeah.
But we'll see. It should be interesting.
And also one last point before we move on, here's a perfect coach, I believe, that could coach that Jets team and take them to a Super Bowl. If you had like a Nick Sirianni, I think he's the type of coach that I'm speaking of. Better than Robert Salah. I think Robert Salah just in over his head, man. He never had this much pressure. I think last year he surprised a lot of people. But when you got that, when that target is on your back, it's hard. It's hard. And I think a coach like Nick Sirianni can overcome that.
Yeah, he's clear, and he's shown it because the growth that this team, not just from the quarterback play, but just holistically from one season to the next. Like, I mean, they're almost a different team. It's really one of the better coaching, 1-year coaching turnarounds that I've seen in recent memory. So that'll be interesting. Slight aside, who I'm also not sold off, and he was the former defensive coordinator, Gannon, who's now the head coach of the Arizona Cardinals. I don't know if you saw the video of him. It was like a snippet of him talking to his team, and he's like, "Did you guys drive over here with fire in your gut? If you didn't, it was very cringeworthy." I just wanted to say that. And goodbye and get ridden, because I honestly don't think. Anyway, I'll leave the slander for another day. But yeah, goodbye and get ridden.
Yeah, definitely. But yeah, unfortunately, that one went a little longer than we thought. But I think that was our more long, question on the board. So I'm glad we had a lot of content in that one. And then I think the technical difficulties have slowed down. So I think that also, played a part in how long that one went. But it was an exciting topic. You got our top 10 teams. Is there any team that you felt like, dang, I wish I would have put them in there, or maybe I could have switched them out? Is there a team that you?
Yep, right off the top of my head, Jaguars.
Jaguars.
Jaguars is
Yeah,
a team. Like, damn, I should have
yeah,
put them in there. Them
yeah.
and maybe the Vikings. Maybe the Vikings. I mean, they've done enough. Anyway, what about you?
I feel like maybe the Minnesota Vikings. I could have gave them some love. You know, they were my team last year, who I felt like could have made it to the NFC Championship with all that talent after you brought in Hawkinson. But yeah, this year I don't think I'm as sold on them as I thought I would be going into this next season. But maybe they could have made it over the Falcons right now, just because it's a lot of ifs with the Falcons. But that's just my homer biases. And I got some more biases, in the future. But yeah, I probably would have added the Minnesota Vikings.
Yeah,
I honestly believe that they also had an addition by subtraction. They got younger by
letting Thielen walk.
and then drafting Addison. I think Addison is going to ball out
Yes.
in that
Yes.
offense. I think he's going to ball out.
Mm-hmm.
You heard it here first.
Yeah.
And I also think that First Cousins doesn't get the love he should. Maybe it was me watching that quarterback Netflix documentary, but yeah, he puts up numbers. And he's got arguably the best wideout in the league. So, and TJ Hawkinson now, he's got that bag. He put up a decent season, another year in that offense, off season. We'll see.
We'll see. Or maybe the Seattle Seahawks. I feel like they got some talent. They low-key got some talent. It just can Geno give you a year like he did last year? That's the only question. Yeah. But the Seahawks should probably be that team as well. Yeah. But yeah, we're gonna go ahead and get to the second segment of this show. The second debate question. This is a big one. This the one right here because this is. But remember, this is our first prediction, so it can change. It can definitely change. But we're gonna go ahead and get to this one, man. Your first Super Bowl prediction. Who you got, man? Coming out that. I guess we'll start with the NFC or the AFC, whichever one you want to start with, man. Who you got?
Man, we gonna start with NFC. I'm a homer on this one. Give me them Eagles, boy. We in there. Yeah, we in there.
Yeah. You can't go wrong with the Eagles. I'm gonna give you my fantasy pick. This is gonna be my fantasy pick. Of course, we're gonna rise up this year, man. We making it all the way to the Super Bowl. Return of the Dirty Birds. So that's my fantasy. If everything went the way it goes in my head, the Atlanta Falcons will be in the Super Bowl. But if I had to pick based on more of an unbiased, opinion, I got to give it to the Eagles as well. They just got a lot of talent, man. You got better, and I just believe that the Eagles are they're the most stout team in the NFC. They're the team that don't really have many questions, like other teams. Even San Francisco has more questions than the Eagles because we don't know what Brock Purdy going to show up. Like I said, he had a great year last year, but can he repeat that? We have seen Jalen Hurts, the last 2 years progress. So you can't really say, man, there's not really questions with Jalen Hurts. So I think the Eagles are right now the Super Bowl team for the NFC.
Yeah, so I'll say my fantasy NFC choice would be the LA Rams, but
I think they did that once in a lifetime. I don't see it happening again. Where the greatest show on turf ain't coming back. So, but yeah, going to my AFC, I honestly that was hard for me because I had like 4 teams that I kept flipping in and out. But I finally settled on one team, and I don't know how, but I think they're just gonna find a way. Give me them Bengals.
I got the same team, man. The Cincinnati Bengals.
Damn.
Cincinnati Bengals making it this year. They're gonna actually go to Arrowhead and turn it back into Burrowhead, and they're gonna go ahead and find their way back into the Super Bowl. And that's gonna be a good game. That would be a good game. The Eagles and the Cincinnati Bengals. Yeah, that'll be a nice game.
I agree.
Yeah. But yeah, those are the 2 teams that for right now, seem to look head and shoulders above the other teams.
Yeah.
Now, sadly, you can't put two teams in the same conference because if that were the case, I'd have the Eagles and the Niners, but something like that, or maybe the Bengals and the Chiefs or something like that. But we can't have that. So
Right. Yeah.
No, that should be a good one. So,
Yeah.
are you gonna go out on the limb and pick one? Because I'm picking the Eagles to win it this year. I said what I said.
Ooh, that would be hard right there, but
It's okay.
oof.
I'll be out there on a limb. It's a long season, but I'm staking. I'm planting my flag now.
Yeah, I think I'll go with the Eagles as well because, like I said, last year we saw what happened in the Super Bowl. They played better than the Chiefs. It's just that after a while the defense just couldn't show up that game. But when you got better on the defense side of the ball, you have a lot of depth. So I just don't believe that this year they're gonna do what they did last year in the Super Bowl. The offense showed up, the defense didn't show up, and like you said, the special teams. But I think this year if they were going against Cincinnati Bengals, they can match up against the Bengals offensively and defensively. And I think that they're a little bit better on the defense side of the ball than the Bengals. And I
Okay. Should be back shortly.
okay, I'm back.
Welcome back.
Yeah, but yeah, I definitely think offensively the Eagles just have way more explosive talent than the Cincinnati Bengals. And so when you add the legs of Jalen Hurts. Yeah, I think the Eagles will. Okay, can you hear me?
Yep.
Yeah. I think the Eagles will win that Super Bowl.
Yeah. I'm inclined to agree, but it should be interesting. We'll see.
Yep. All right, so we're gonna get to the next one. The next one is who is your surprise pick going into this season? Who you think is the team that people are gonna be surprised by and they're gonna be successful this year?
So I'm biased, but I think it's the Rams. And it
Depends on what your definition of success is. If you mean success in terms of like winning significantly more games than they did the year before,
then it would be a team like the Rams. If you mean a team that missed the playoffs, that will make the playoffs, again, that'd be a team like the Rams.
And yes, their record last year and their play last year might not have shown it to the untrained eye, but they were in a lot more games than people thought.
Yeah.
With the fact that
their three best players didn't play an entire NFL season.
Yeah.
Matthew Stafford was out.
he only played, I think, 9 games last year.
Mm-hmm.
Aaron Donald, I think, played about the same amount of games. Cooper Kupp was lost halfway into the season.
Mm-hmm.
Again, this is the Super Bowl MVP, Triple Crown winner from 2 seasons ago, a 3-time Defensive Player of the Year, and a quarterback that was in the top 10
of passing categories 2 seasons ago, even though he also led the league in picks.
But that's a conversation for another day. So I think it's not outside of the realm of possibility, considering they won 5 games with basically 14 different offensive line combinations.
Mm-hmm.
There's no way that's going to happen again, right?
Yep.
And yes, Cooper Kupp is going to be out for the first 4 weeks of the season. But I think
This is going to be arguably
Sean McVay's biggest and
best coaching year of his career so far.
and
Mm.
if I'm right, that should be enough. That should be enough for 7 to 10 wins. But I'm leaning more on the side of 10 wins. Well, not 10, but I think 8 or 9 wins, considering you were 5-12
the year before,
Mm-hmm.
I think that would be a successful season. And I think that would surprise a lot of people, especially because you have the Seahawks and you have the Niners. And the thing that I know about those two teams in that division, the Seahawks, we almost won both of those games last year.
Yeah.
We took them
into overtime for the regular season finale, and we lost by a field goal, and we lost by 3 points in the other game. Now the Niners, they seem to have our number, but the last time we played them at full strength, we did beat them when it counted. Just saying.
Yeah.
So I got the Rams, and I said what I said.
I ain't gonna lie, that's a solid pick because I could see the Rams taking that step, returning back to their success. Maybe barely making the playoffs or missing the playoffs, but being in the hunt for for most of the season. But if I had to say right now, my surprise pick, I got two, one from the AFC and one from the NFC. My NFC is gonna be my Atlanta Falcons. A lot of people were sleeping on us. We finally had some money to spend in the free agency, and boy, did we do that. But we didn't spend a lot of money, and that's what I like. We didn't spend a lot of money, but we brought some guys that wanted to be here, and we brought some experience on this side, on both sides of the ball. Calais Campbell, he chose Atlanta, and he's gonna add depth, and he's gonna add some leadership, and he's gonna add some physicality to this defense. David Amiyata, you bring him in with the defense coordinator that came from New Orleans. He was the defensive line coach, and we saw what the New Orleans Saints defensive line was about in the last few years. So we made him our defensive coordinator. Ryan Neeson, that's his name. You brought in Bud Dupree, and looks like he's going to be starting over Lorenzo Carter. And then you brought in Caden Ellis from the New Orleans Saints again, someone who can pass rush and play that middle linebacker position. And then you brought in a Jesse Bates who wanted to be in Atlanta, and you didn't spend a lot of money that I thought you was going to have to spend for Jesse Bates. And then when you look on that offense side of the ball, like I said, you bring in a Bijan Robinson. You brought in a Matt Hollins, who I believe can be a Roddy White for this team, or Mohamed Sanu. You still pair him with Drake London, who I believe is going to take that step forward this year. Desmond Ritter, a more solid quarterback, I believe, than Marcus Mariota with the accuracy. Hopefully that's my only question. Can he be a good game manager? Can he get the ball to these weapons? Kyle Pitts coming off an injury. And I believe that, this offensive line was stout last year in the run game. Can they make that step forward in the pass blocking game? But I think, offensively, we should be pretty stout, but this defense should be our driving force this year. So I got the Atlanta Falcons on the NFC side. But on the AFC side, I got definitely a surprise team for you. The last 2 years, I've been predicting them. The Detroit Lions and now the New York Jets last year. But this year, I'm going with the Houston Texans. A lot of people are sleeping on the Houston Texans. I believe DeMeco Ryans will have this defense ready. It's easy to look at their roster and be like, man, they just don't have the talent. But that's the thing about a surprise team. It looks like it's a mirage. It looks like it could fail. But then when you look at the Houston Texans last year under Lovie Smith, in all those games, they were really competitive. They just couldn't pull it out. And you could obviously see they was probably tanking a lot, but then they also suffered a lot of injuries. But you bringing back Damian Pierce, who can be a great running back in this league, from Georgia, from Bainbridge, Georgia. Shout out to my boy Bush. He from his hometown. They got Nico Collins, Robert Woods, Noah Brown at the receiver position. They brought in Dalton Schultz as the tight end. The offensive line needs a little help, but they got some key pieces of Laramie Tunsil, Josh Jones. You got Shaq Mason on the right side, and George Fant. So not the best offensive line, but they can. I think they can block a little bit, and they're gonna have to protect C.J. Stroud. Hopefully, C.J. Stroud can have one of them good rookie seasons, and if not, then you got David Mills, who's already got some time in. Maybe he can step up if he needs to. But I think the defensive side of the ball is going to be their driving force, led by Will Anderson Jr., the rookie out of Alabama. You got the other rookie out of Alabama. Well, he's not a rookie; he's a second-year player, Christian Harris, last year out of Alabama. Both of them boys coming out that edge. And then you got you got Derek Stingley Jr., who I think he's not making his debut, but this is pretty much like his rookie season because he haven't been able to play a full season yet. And then Jalen Petrie last year was probably one of the best defensive rookies last year at that free safety position. So I think this defense, and then you add in the Sheldon Rankins on that defensive line. So I think the defense is going to be pretty stout, and DeMeco Ryans is going to have these boys ready to play, and I think they're going to surprise a lot of people this year. So I got the Houston Texans on the AFC side.
So I don't leave you hanging. I will give you my sleeper for the AFC. And I hate doing this, but it shows how objective of a person I am. Give me those Patriots.
Patriots.
I like the Patriots. They made some sneaky, quiet moves that will go under the radar, especially because of that division. And, it's, 3 teams supposedly ahead of it. But Devontae Parker is a solid wideout.
Mm-hmm.
Juju Smith-Schuster is
a solid wideout.
Yeah.
Now, if you go to their tight end situation, you got Hunter Henry and Mike Gesicki. Running back, you got Ramondre Stevenson, and now you got Zeke as your short yardage, goal line back. Mac Jones, even though he's not, he clearly had a drop off from his rookie season. Right. But I think that was more because of the limitations of the offensive play calling and the skill position players than him as a player. But I think, defensively, they are who they continue to be. They're usually in the top 10, top 15. They're usually, worst case scenario, their floor is middle of the road. But their default is top 10 to top 12, right? Mm-hmm. So if that's the case, give me that with Bill O'Brien calling the plays now. He's a seasoned offensive coordinator. Again, OCs matter to me.
And he's been there before. Yep. And he was also at Bama. Now, granted, he wasn't there at the same time as Mac Jones, but him having a familiarity of the type of offense that Mac Jones is accustomed to running and actually thrives in.
Yes.
There was talent there. Mac Jones was a Heisman finalist for most of his college career. That wasn't by accident. I think this is the year, and the way they're constructing the team gives me a little bit of those, and I'm not trying to compare apples to apples, but it gives me the same ideology of those Aaron Hernandez, Gronk, Tom Brady teams from back in the day where it was like a lot of 12 personnel, 2 tight end sets. Yep. You pound the ball, with some solid to decent running backs. You had no names that became household names in terms of wideouts because Wes Welker, Edelman, these guys were no names until they became household names. Now again, it does help when you have a guy like Tom Brady throwing as opposed to Mac Jones. Am I comparing the two? Absolutely not. But I will say, I think they're going to surprise people. Now, what will that do in terms of wins? It wouldn't be a surprising thing to see them contend for the AFC Championship, or it'd be a 3-team race for most of the season until maybe the last couple of games. They might even make the playoffs. But I don't think getting 8 or 9 wins is outside of the question. And if that's the case, then they are going to surprise people. But I think they're going to be better than they look on paper.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm looking at this defense. This defense is going to be pretty stout.
No joke. And
they got a lot of talent on this defense side of the ball.
They got meat on the bone on that side.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm looking at Dedrick Wise,
Right.
Devon Goddard, but you still got Christian Balmore behind him. Lawrence Guy Senior, who's an older player, but then behind him you got Keon White out of Georgia Tech, and I wanted Keon White in this draft. Trey Flowers is out, but Matthew Judon. I'm trying to think of some other guys. I see Jonathan Jones. I like Cal Duggar. I like Jabril Peppers. And then you add in Christian Gonzalez, the rookie. And then you got Jalen Mills, So yeah, they pretty stout. That's a nice little pick. I like that pick. And we know with Bill Belichick, he can coach a defense. So I wouldn't be surprised. I see that as a good surprise, a surprise sneaky team. Yeah. I like it. All right, so now it's time to get to the harder one, man. Which team is gonna regress this year that had a successful season last year? Whether they made it to the playoffs or they was one of them contending teams that was on the outside. What team do you have, man?
So I have the sexy pick would be the Chiefs because, oh my God, overreaction off of one game. I have the Bills.
The Bills?
Mm-hmm.
I knew you was going to say that.
How did you know?
I don't know. I just had a feeling you was going to say the Bills.
And it was a toss-up between them and the Chargers. But I figured I gave them more credit where it was due because I'm very big on slandering Justin Herbert.
Yeah,
he's my Lamar Jackson to your slander because you got to show me, and you got to show me for more than just one season. But anyway, I think the Bills. And you know what? This also low-key might be a make-or-break year for the head coach there, too. Because of all the stuff that happened, yes. Sean McDermott, it's a similar situation. He's had this team for a while. You can't keep trotting out the same team. And Stephon Diggs had the stuff in the offseason with the team. Who knows? But also, too, again, just the division they play in. I mean, everybody in that division has gotten better. And I'm looking at them, and I know I'm slightly contradicting what I said in the power rankings, but again, it's the power rankings. It's first power rankings of the year, subject to change. But I don't know if I saw them do enough in the offseason to justify them being one of the top 5, 6 teams. Now, right now, on paper, they're in the top 5. But if there's any team where it's like, y'all probably going to slip, I could see them. I could see them being a team that goes from double-digit wins to 8, 9 wins, 7 wins, especially if they lose pieces like through injury or just guys aren't as effective as they were the season before. What if Gabe Davis has a down year? What if Stephon Diggs has a more pedestrian season?
Yeah.
What if, Josh Allen increases his interceptions? Those are things that are not that unreasonable to believe. They're very top heavy. I don't think they're well suited. I don't even know who their backup QB is. God forbid if Josh Allen is injured or, has to sit out a game for whatever reason.
Yeah.
I don't know who would come in behind him. I don't. So that's my team.
Yeah, I like that one. I can see your point with that one, but this one was kind of tough for me because I feel like the team I chose wasn't really good, but it was just because of the division that they were in. They made it to the playoffs. It was, they won the division. But the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, like they to me, I think they're gonna go from first in the division to now worse in the division and probably have a top 10 pick in the draft. Baker Mayfield, I don't believe in Baker Mayfield. I never have, never will. He's one of them guys that has had a whole bunch of talent. When you look at the Cleveland Browns, had a whole bunch of talent and couldn't do anything. Had a defense and had some talent on that offense. Running back, receivers, tight end. He had one of the best offensive lines and still couldn't produce. But now he's going to another team that has, some receivers, and a defense that can be stout. And I still believe that Baker Mayfield is going to hold them back, and they're not gonna win this division. I think it's going to be between the Atlanta Falcons and the New Orleans Saints, and I think the Atlanta Falcons hopefully will pull it out. But we'll see what happens. But I think the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are going to go from first to worst. And I think the Carolina Panthers are going to have a slightly better season than them, but even still, they still going to be the bottom feeders in this division. But I just feel like the Tampa Bay Buccaneers will regress this year. But if I had to give you another pick, maybe kind of off the cuff, I'm actually going to go with the Minnesota Vikings. I think the Minnesota Vikings, last year had a chance, and seems like, I don't know, they just couldn't put it together towards the end of the season. And I think this year they're gonna have these high expectations or these high hopes, and I just don't feel like they're gonna make it. I think the Detroit Lions are gonna win that division, and the Minnesota Vikings may be number 2. Depends on if Green Bay. I get it, no Aaron Rodgers, Jordan Love taking over, but I feel like Green Bay still has pieces in place that can kind of hide the Jordan Love, lack of talent, if there's a lack of talent. But I feel like the Minnesota Vikings will have high expectations, and they're going to fold under those high expectations. I love Justin Jefferson, but I just don't believe in Kirk Cousins. I think he's starting to get a little. I think he's starting to regress the older he gets. Not saying that he was ever a great quarterback, but he was solid. But I think he's starting to come back down to earth, and I think losing Dalvin Cook was a big loss for them. But I just feel like if I had to say, the Minnesota Vikings probably going to regress this year.
We'll agree to disagree on that. I get it that they lost
Dalvin Cook, but Madison
was solid in spurts. And again, I'm really bullish on them picking up Addison. I think he's going to be.
I like Addison. Yeah.
I liked his game when he was with USC, and I thought, and even Pittsburgh. So when he was with the Panthers. So I think that his game is going to translate well. He has the size, he has the measurables, and because JJ is going to command so much attention on the defense, it's going to give him a lot of one-on-ones. It's going to give him, and then they have TJ Hawkinson, so it's not like the cupboard is completely bare. And I believe that Kirk Cousins is a lot better than people give him credit for. I think he's going to prove it again this year. Now, I do still think the Lions are on the upward trajectory of winning that division, but I think Minnesota, I wouldn't be surprised if Minnesota wins it again or wins it. And I also wouldn't be surprised if they're in a dogfight to the end or 2-team race. And like you said, you never know with Green Bay. Jordan Love could have a solid enough season.
Yeah.
And with that defense and the play calling and a lot of the continuity there, that could still propel them to, have something to say in the NFC North. So we'll see.
Yep. Yeah, definitely. But so that's another great episode of No Huddle, man. Definitely, although given the technical difficulties, I think we still had a nice little show, gave a lot of content. So we definitely definitely love the support that y'all continuously give us. I'm pretty sure I know we didn't have nobody kind of viewing or no comments today, but I know y'all gonna watch this video and y'all gonna love this video, man. But if you're hearing this video, please go to YouTube, subscribe to Fan of Atlanta 365. Support the channel by liking, commenting on these videos, and sharing these videos. Hey, it's been another episode of No Huddle. Catch us live. We won't be live next week. I thought it was this week, but it's next week that we would not be live. So we I guess we get a little off season, a little bye week before we come back and lunch again. But yeah, definitely, man, catch No Huddle every Saturday. Hopefully, probably, I don't know if we're gonna stick with the 6 o'clock time. I like it, but at the same time, we'll discuss that a little later. But definitely catch us live every Saturday. Catch Fan of Atlanta 365 live every every day after the Falcons play for a post game analysis, and I also catch J&B to Talk of the Dirty South show every Friday night. Once my guy returned back, I'm gonna hold it down until he return back. But definitely catch us live every Friday night discussing these Atlanta Falcons football, man. But until next time, man, it's been another episode of No Huddle. Don't forget, man, tell your mama, tell your daddy, tell your sister, tell your brother, tell your dog, tell your cat, tell your snake, tell your rat, and throw in your Carolina panty, because the Atlanta Falcons will be making them the Carolina panties tomorrow again, with a dominant win over the Carolina Panthers. But yeah, man, hey, do you have anything before we get out of here?
Hey, man, I just want to shout out my Nittany Lions, man. They wiped the floor with the Blue Hens of Delaware. I think it was 63-7. So yeah, man, we're looking good. We're looking good, and also shout out Coach Prime and them Colorado Buffaloes, man. They showing they not one hit wonders, man.
Right.
This team is for real, and they coming. Matter of fact, to use his words, they already here. They here. So we'll see. We gonna see.
Yeah, they already got more wins than they had last year, so that's a successful season. But I felt like I have never watched a Colorado game, but this game, I think that stadium was crazy, bro. I know it's a rivalry game with Nebraska and Colorado, but I don't think they have ever had this many viewers watching their game, especially with, I didn't even watch Georgia game because, we playing Ball State. We supposed to win. Now, Alabama and Texas, I'm pretty sure that game should be going on right now. But I think that Colorado game, everybody just tuning in every weekend for them, and then you watch all the other games. But, yeah, definitely shout out to Coach Prime, man. Them boys looking good. I thought Nebraska played well on the defense side of the ball. It's just their quarterback, man. Their quarterback was holding them back. But Colorado, they defense is pretty nice, man. They got a nice little team. So I look forward to continuing to watch them this season. And shout out to my Bulldogs, handling business even though they start off slow, but they got traction and they did their thing. But yeah, so hopefully we have some good football. Tomorrow, man, it's the first week of the NFL season, so we definitely got to enjoy some football Sunday, man. But until next time, we'll see y'all in the next one. It's been another episode of No Huddle with me, Jeremy, and my guy Hassan, man. So we'll see y'all 2 weeks from now. Hey, we up out of here, man.
Y'all be safe.